Welcome back, data leaders and Python learners. Mastering database connections with Python. A practitioner's guide to SQLAlchemy, Pydantic and SQL models with SQLite. What problem we are facing? The direct issue is we have to connect Python applications or the scripts with the databases. How are we going to do that? Because databases have a different execution environment. It's working inside the server, and Python has its own execution environment with its own script and variables. The connection between these two environments is created using the various libraries that the Python ecosystem has created. And in that ecosystem comes SQLAlchemy, Pydantic, SQLmodel, and also SQLite database. All this are part of the Python ecosystem, including Pandas. What we are going to do in this video is, it's going to be considerably long video, but I want to cover these things in a single video. What I want to cover is that I want to show minimum two ways to actually push the data from a simple Excel file or a CSV file or even a text file to the database, to a Postgres database or to a SQLite3 database. Okay, we will see that how easy it is, but we have to understand the basics a bit. So people who are new to Python or people who are new to Postgres or databases also, I want to touch the basics of it, and then I will actually go into the way of integrating it with Python and using SQLAlchemy, using Pandas, using Pydantic and SQLmodel. As you see, this is actually a very different way of taking a particular ecosystem or talking about a particular ecosystem. So let me try this, and you can leave a comment if you like this way of providing the content. Let me go further. So first and foremost, we have to go through all this process that I have shown here to work with SQLAlchemy objects in Python script. Okay, don't worry about this right now. Even if you don't get it or if you don't understand it, it's fine. First, we have to deal with Pandas. That is easiest way to work with databases, and then we will deal with SQLAlchemy. SQLAlchemy is very important when you are going to work with APIs. So what I mean by API, let me go to the Internet Explorer, and what you are seeing is actually a model API that has been created using Fast API. It's again a library of Python that I'll be introducing in detail in the next video. Next video you will have the details of the basics of Fast API, and there will be an implementation. The same API that you see here, I will show how it is implemented. And you can go to this particular link and you can actually check this API. So it is open to everybody. So you can go here, and if you want to create user, you can create the user. And if you want to analyze, you can do analysis. If you want to check how the data comes out, you can just say try out and then click execute. And once you click execute, you will see the data comes out like this, as you're seeing here. Getting back to the presentation. So as you see, Fast API, the API that you saw, the example, that the link is also provided here, extensively uses SQLAlchemy, also uses Pydantic models, and uses SQLite database. It doesn't use Postgres, it uses SQLite database. It is easier to create integration. Okay, so that is the reason why I want to cover this SQLAlchemy process, and also I want to cover the main ways to push the data to the database. Okay, so this is the presentation I am going to give. I want to move to the Jupyter notebook. Before that, I will move to the terminal. Okay, in the terminal, I have already started the Jupyter notebook. You see the server running here, and this Jupyter notebook server is running inside the directory of the repo. Basically, what I mean is, let us go to the Internet Explorer. Let us go to this particular repo. So I have downloaded this repo, python_d_learners_data. I have downloaded this, kept it in my local drive, and I have gone into this folder, and in that folder I am running the Jupyter notebook. So that's what I'm trying to say. let us go back to the terminal, and without further ado, let us fire up Postgres database. Okay, I already have Postgres database installed, so if you have not installed it, do install it in your machine. It's there are lots of even there is Docker also available, or you can directly use the installation itself in your local environment. So just you can pull it out, and I'm going to use PSQL connection application. PSQL is a connection application, and I'm going to connect to the database. Okay, so here it is saying that the Postgres role does not exist, so I am using the wrong spelling here, spelling mistake, and I'm connected to it. And there are three main commands I want to discuss here. One is /l, that is list databases. It will list all the databases, and /d, it will list all the tables, and there you did not find any relations. That means it did not find any tables. So in database jargon, relations is actually it's actually a table. Now coming to, okay, we need to create a table. Okay, so create table, new table, and I'm going to create id num serial, and then I'm going to say name first is varchar. Okay, I made a mistake here. So whatever is Postgres related values, Postgres related variables, I need to put it as use uppercase, and whatever variables that I am going to personally create will be lowercase. So name first is what I am going to create, so it will be name first in lowercase, and varchar is Postgres variable, so I'll be using uppercase, name last, varchar. And that is, so the table has got created. Now I am going to insert values into it. So when I insert into new table, and I am going to give name. So when I am going to give names, I have to, when I'm going to use any string, I have to cover it, I have to use the single quote in Postgres. Okay, keep that in mind, you have to use only single quote. I'm going to use Superman okay, that is a mistake. I should be first of all using id num, sorry, that also I should not be using. I should use name first, and I should use name last. That is what I'm going to give. And in the values, I have to use Superman and enter. So it has got inserted, and now I say select star from new table, and you see that I have id num1 Superman. So you must be wondering, okay, how did this id got here? This id got here because I gave the id underscore num as serial. So serial is a inbuilt command in Postgres which will create auto increment indexes. So if you have to check that, you have to use /d and give the table name. You will see that, okay, just a minute. So here you see the entire default value, it comes here, and this is actually a sequence. So id num is a sequence, and it cannot be null, and it can be used as a primary key, but I did not use that here. If you want, you can give the primary key also. Okay, you saw how to input the data into Postgres manually. Now we are going to drop the table promptly, because we are going to work with lots of tables. So let us drop the table, and I am going to quit. Okay, so look at this part of the video again. Okay, if you are having questions, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into SQLAlchemy drive, and I'm going to use SQLite3. This command will be enabled in your machine, in your operating system, if Python is installed. Okay, SQLite3 ships with Python, so you don't need to install anything. It will come by default. If it is not installing, then if it is not installed, just go to Google, you will find out how to install it. But 99.999% you don't need to. So SQLite3, I am going to say tutorial underscore data.db. Okay, I am going to create a SQLite database right now. So we saw Postgres, and now we are going to see SQLite. And I created a SQLite database. I'm inside the database right now, and there are a couple of commands which is totally different here. So in order to check the tables, in order to check the databases, what you need to do is you have to give this command. So it will directly give the complete path. This is actually absolute path. Keep this in mind. So whenever someone talks in computer science, they say absolute path and relative path. This is absolute path. This is from my root of the, this is my root directory in my operating system. And when it comes to, okay, let us actually accept. Okay, I'm going to accept. When it comes to the relative path, what happens is I will do present working directory. I am using Linux environment, so I will be using present working directory. And in present working directory, you see that this is the complete length. It is already has been filled up. Okay, and from here, so if I say from here, if I have to refer to, say to, wait a minute, let us see what is there. Okay, let me refer to the database underscore engine. So if I say database underscore engine, and if I give this kind of a name, I am not giving this entire path. You see this? I am not giving any of this. I am just giving database underscore engine. So this way of representing the file path is called as relative path. This file location is relative to this entire base path. So keep this in mind when you are thinking about relative and absolute path. And this is also very important when you are going to give create database connections. There might be challenges coming into picture which you may not actually expect, and it is mainly because the path is wrong. Okay, so most of the errors you can resolve it if you know where the database is. Like in our case, the database is here. Okay, and the database relative path, when I am in this folder, when I am in SQLAlchemy, the relative path is direct, so I don't need to do anything. Okay, I have to just say SQLite3 and tutorial, and it will open. So it will go into the SQLite database. Okay, but if it is not here, then you need to give the proper path. Okay, so let me show how to give the proper path, proper relative path. So let me go out. Let me go one step back, and now if you have to, okay, let me list. So now if you have to open the same tutorial database, what I need to do is SQLite3, and I need to use SQLAlchemy and then tutorial database. It will again open the database. So this is how you have to understand the path. This is very, very basic, but many people struggle with this. So ensure that you are confident with this area. And let us go into SQLite. Wrong. So let us go into SQLAlchemy and SQLite3 and tutorial database, and I'm going to create again table, a new table, and I'm going to create, okay, in case of SQLite3, the way the indexes works is totally different from Postgres. Okay, so here I am going to manually enter the index. Okay, so in order to avoid any issues there, so let me manually enter. I'm going to say name first and name last, and I'm making a mistake here. I'm going to create the table, right? So I have to say integer text. I think it is string actually. Let me check. I think it will error out. I am making a mistake here. Let me check. Oh, it worked. So let me now check the schema. See, this is one of the points that I wanted to share. What sometimes happens is that it has to be intuitive, right? If a program is well designed, then you don't actually need to go to the documentation itself. That if a person who is aware of how to work with the computers or operating system, then and solve problems with code, he will be able to find out most of the things without referring the documentation. Like I was guessing that okay, this could be string, or if it was not working, I would have tried, okay, let me try varchar. So like this, the series of things, the experienced guys can immediately figure it out. So it is not magic, it comes with experience. Now I have created the table. Now let me do insert into new table, and I'm going to say id num. Okay, here I have to give the id num also. So I told that it will not be a serial, so I'll say name first and name last, and I say values is equal to 1 super man. Okay, so it has got into that, and I say select star from new table, and you see that, okay, I have the table here, and this looks totally different from what you saw in Postgres. But you saw how to basically get the table up and running, or create a database, get the table up and running in both Postgres as well as in SQLite3. Okay, sorry, I missed one point in Postgres, so let me go to Postgres. I think, yeah, let me go to Postgres again. And what I missed is I did not show you how to create the database, so that is actually important. Localhost, and all you need to do is create database and new database. That is all you have to do. There is nothing you have to do about this. See, in production there is going to be a lot of other things that you need to worry about. Okay, when you are practicing doing tutorials, this is sufficient. But in production, you will be doing a lot of other things. The database administrators do a lot of other checks before they make a database and then let it to the, make it up for the production. Okay. So if you give enter, the database will get created. You will get the feedback that create database is done. And if you do L, you will see that new database is created. Okay. And if you have to connect to the database, you have to say new database like this, and it will connect to the new database. Okay, and if you list, so if you want to list the tables, you will see that there is no relations in the table. Okay, so this is a very super fast introduction for the databases of both SQLite3 as well as Postgres. We are done. We have understood how to manually input data into both SQLite3 and Postgres, and you saw how tedious it was. It is not something that you want to do if you are going to input some 40,000 lines. So let me show you what the lines looks like, what the file looks like. Cat sample so there it goes. So it's not stopping. So there is almost 40,000 lines, and each row contains almost 15 columns. Now just assume that you have to fill all these 40,000 lines manually in those databases you saw, Postgres and SQLite. I know it's going to be a nightmare, right? Okay, we are going to make your life so easy. You will be actually astonished that, okay, how did I not know this? So let us go to the Internet Explorer right now. Okay, and let us go into the Jupyter Notebook. I am assuming that you have already come up to speed with Jupyter Notebooks and you are able to open it. If you are not, I have a separate video tagged in this video, which you can take a look, where you'll see how to come up to speed with Jupyter Notebook, and also with GitHub also. So I will share those things for your reference. Now that I am here, all I need to do is go into projects and go into SQLAlchemy. What I want you guys to do is look at this file, Python_SQLAlchemy, not SQLmodel. We will go to that later. You have to open this file. Once you open that, it will open into a new window, and you will see that all of the code is already written there. The way you are going to learn is it's something that I will be sharing. So that will be much more fun. Okay, we are in the Python execution environment. Even though this is Jupyter Notebook, underlying environment is still Python. Each cell is a separate Python execution session. Okay, whatever we are going to execute in this cell will be separate, and whatever we are going to execute in this cell will be separate. But the variables which are going to be used in this cell will get shared in each of the cell. That is how Jupyter Notebook works. Now I am going to import a couple of libraries. I'll be importing Pandas. Okay, I'll be importing SQLite3, and all these libraries must be installed in your operating system using pip install. Ensure that you have done that. If not, take a look at earlier videos. I've explained it in detail. And okay, so let us begin. So what I'm going to do is, I have told that SQLite ships with Python, so ensure that you have Python installed and create SQLite desktop. So we saw how to create SQLite database. Okay, so this particular database that we created, the database name is, let us go back and check the database name for your reference. Database, yeah, the database name is tutorial_data.db. So this is the database, SQLite3 database. Okay, the database that we are going to use for Postgres is Postgres only. So that is Postgres, so you don't need to worry about that. And now let us go to the SQLite3. Okay, the point what I am going to make here is that for first and foremost, we need to get the data into the database, a bulk entry into the database. Like if you want to push 40,000 or 50,000 or even 100,000 lines into a database, how to do it? For that, we are going to use Pandas data frame. Okay, and you'll be surprised how much time it takes. Okay, so I'm going to execute it. I will show it to you. That will be much more easier for you to comprehend. What I'm going to do is, let me actually do a simple open here. This will actually open the this will list down first 5 lines of the code, first 5 lines of the sample_data_CSV. So this has actually 40,000 lines. This particular CSV file has 40,000 lines. What we are going to do is, first we are going to read the CSV and create the data frame, and then we are going to drop one. When we create a data frame, what happens is one of the additional columns gets created. We need to drop it. If you don't want, you can use one of the ways to use index equal to false. Okay, but I am not going to do that, so I will drop it manually, and then I am going to use toSQL. So I am going to use this command toSQL, and I am going to use connection string. Okay, I will tell you what is connection string. Okay, and then I'm saying, okay, the table exists. So this is the table name I'm going to give. If the table exists, I'm going to say append. I'm going to say, okay, so there are a couple of ways to handle this. So let me show it to you. Actually, you can replace it, you can append it, or the best is to replace it. Okay, but in this case I'm going with append, but you can actually explore that also. And I'm going to execute this. Just a minute. So let me show you how the data frame looks. Okay, data frame is equal to pd read CSV. So I'm using the same command, and I'm going to read in the file sample data CSV, and let me actually okay, let me start. Okay, data frame dot head 2. So I'm just showing the first 2 rows. So this is how the data frame looks, and you see this unnamed 0, this column we don't need, so I'm going to drop it. This is what I'm dropping here. And next what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use data frame, and I'm going to use toSQL. So this is also the data frame is basically the object in Python, which we can use for working with huge data. And if you go into the SQL method, toSQL method, you will see there are lots of options, lots of information here. In this, what you need to do is, you need to check what are the basic existing parameters, how they are already configured. So if you see here, if exists is by default given as fail. So what this means is, if the table exists, it will fail. So it will error out and fail. So we don't want that to happen. The other option, if you want to understand, so there is replace. So instead of failing, it will, if you can either give append or replace. If it is replace, then it will replace the table completely. So it will not ask you. So it will just replace. Or it will say append means it will append to the database. So if I push 40,000 rows, and after that again I do this command, it will again add 40,000 rows to the database table basically. So this is what I wanted to also show it to you guys. I'm going to keep it here and I'm going to save this file. Okay, now I am going, okay, so here is another 3 functions that I will be using to interact with the Postgres as well as SQLite3 databases. So these functions I'm not going to explain, so don't worry about that. You have to just use it as it is. As you become more comfortable with the database and the queries, etc., then you will understand these functions. So as of now, just use it as it is. So first and foremost, this function will create the schema from the data frame. So let me show that to you what it does. So I say schema gen, and I give the data frame that I created just now, and I say, okay, schema name, I'm going to say trial schema, and I give enter. So it gives me a schema of the complete data frame. So this data frame, you see the schema here. So schema is basically the create table command that we can give it to SQL, and this command you can directly use it in Postgres and you can create the table there. So this is this entire function is for that only. And next, these two we will look at it after we have done some activity with the database. Okay, so now comes the important point. So I have to first of all change this. The DB location is tutorial database DB, so I'm going to change that, and the file data location is sample data. Okay, if you see here, I have actually changed the location. This is actually an absolute path. Why I am saying it's an absolute path? Because this tilde in Linux means home directory. So this, in the home directory, I have kept a copy of this file so that it will be easier for me to work with it. Okay, but when you are going to work, please ensure that you change this location to the place where this sample underscore data.csv is. And if you are confused, then actually move it to your home directory. If you are in Windows, go to your documents and place it there, so that it will be easier for you to access. Okay, this is one of the major places people struggle. Don't take me wrong, this could be very simple, but in the beginning this can be a headache. Even for experienced people, sometimes they make this mistake. Let us now start working on that. So I have already given a name to my table. I have assigned a value to the table name so that it will be easier for me to work. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to do 2 things. Okay, I have to push the data sample underscore data.csv, that 40,000 lines, all these lines, into the SQLite database tutorial underscore data.db and Postgres database. Both I need to push. So I cannot actually share you the Postgres, what is it called, the credentials that I have in my system. So what I have done is, there is a library called as config parser. So this library helps me to keep my credentials hidden, and then take the data from example.config file and store it in this Python variable. Okay, all you need to do is come back to this particular tab, this particular location. You will see that, okay, you will not actually see example.config file. Whatever you are seeing here, you will not see this. Okay, go a step back, and if you go into Jupyter Notebooks, you will see there is a file called example.conf. So click that. It will open a separate text. This is how the actual example.config file that I am using here, this file, example.config file, will look like this file. So change this area. So change it to your host. Your host should be localhost, your database name, your username, your database password and username, and your port should be 5432. Okay, and then copy this file from here to this place, to the place where you are working, that is SQLAlchemy. Okay, and put it here under the name as example.conf or example.config and use it. Okay, this is something that you need to do. You will understand how it works. I have taken the earlier videos where I explained the ecosystem of Python. I have gone detail into config parser. So you can take a look at that video. So now I am going to proceed. I executed this. Let me execute this also to ensure that it is all right. And now we are actually starting to move towards getting the data into the database. Okay, we are almost touching 30 minutes, and let us actually get the credentials working. This credentials will look like this. So it will look like this, and ensure that you print this credential out and check whether it is all okay. Okay, it should be your username, your password, your host, the port, and your database. So all should align, or else the next couple of commands will not work. Now I am going to first of all work with SQLite database, right? So let me, if you see the database location for SQLite3 is tutorial_data_db. This is direct. We are right now using at the same place, right? I don't need to do anything. So I just give execute, and the SQLite connection string is working. So no issues. Now what we are going to do is this load_data. You saw this particular function that I introduced, load_data. We are going to use that. I'm going to give this connection. So I'm going to give this connection here. I'm going to give the data file, data_location, and I'm going to use the table name. Okay, and I'm going to execute this. You will see that after a couple of seconds it completes. It doesn't tell you anything, but let us go to the terminal. Okay, and in the terminal, let me enter into SQLite3 tutorial data, and if you see, there will be tables. First of all, you see there is something called as hack data. So this is the table that I wrote just now, and if I do select, okay, let us do select count star from hack data, you'll see 40,000. Okay, so this, all the data got written by this simple function. By this single function, it got written. Okay, and let us go back to the terminal, and if you see, if I do a select star from hack data limit 5, you'll see that it has already written everything. Okay, so there is index, and all the data is written here. So all the 40,000 lines got into the database without even losing a single sweat. That is one step, right? Okay, I have to go to the next step, where I'm going to push the same data into Postgres database now. Again, it is going to be a single command, but only difference is that instead of using SQLite connect, I'm going to use the credentials directly. So this value, this particular string, I'm going to directly pass it here, and the function is same. I'm not changing anything. Okay, the function is same. If you see, if you come back to here, if you see the connection string here, this connection string can either take the connection string of Postgres database, MySQL database, or it can take SQLite3 connection database. So both connection string, both it can take. Okay, that is how Pandas has been devised. That is how Pandas function has been coded. Okay, that is how I should say. Let me come here and then execute this code. Okay, let us proceed, and it is executing, and it will take a little time. Let us go to the terminal, and in the meantime, let us do a PSQL now. Okay, made a mistake. PSQL u Postgres and h localhost, and enter, and you will see that I already have a table. Okay, and my table name is new data. Okay, let us count. Just a minute. Just give me a moment. Let us count. Let us say select count star from new data. The table name that I have given here is new data, so that's why you are seeing that in that way. And you see there is 40,000 rows. So, and let me also select star from new data and limit 5, and you see the data is here directly. So I did not actually do anything manually. So all I need to do was use the, let us go back to the, all I need to do was use Pandas use the read CSV, what is it called? The read CSV method, create a data frame, use toSQL method again, that is data frames method, and then write the data to the both SQLite as well as Pandas Postgres database. So yeah, that is a very fast introduction of how to work using Pandas, using Python with database. Okay, and getting the data into the database. This is one of the greatest point that you need to always keep in mind, that how to get the data into the database. There are various other challenges that can come. Okay, when you are actually pushing the raw CSV file, so the CSV file like this, right? If you are pushing into the database, there could be, if the CSV file has null values, if the CSV file has the number of columns is different, then the database will not accept. So it is extremely tough to get the data into the database. Okay, and practice, it comes with practice. So even though I am showing this data to you and I am showing it as if it is, I have done it in less than 30 minutes. But in reality, I have done the activity research at the backend, and I have understood the issues that can come. And I have removed all those issues right now from this CSV file. But when you try it with your CSV files, there could be challenges that occurs. And ensure that basic things like the number of columns, there is no null values, and there is no any data type mismatch, the encoding is appropriate. All these things you need to check. Okay, and even after that you are facing the problem, then you need to ask for help. Okay, don't spend a lot of time in pushing the data to the database. If it is not working, immediately ask for help to someone who knows or experienced. Okay, we have seen how to push bulk data into the database. Okay, and now what we are going to do is, we have to first and foremost take the data out. We have pushed the data in. Now how to take the data out? We can again use Pandas. For that, we have to use read SQL. I have created this particular function for that only. So you can use read SQLite data, and if you give the table names and the credential, so here I am reading it from SQLite database. Okay, and if I execute this, you will see that the data comes out. And here, this is for Postgres database. If I execute this, the data will come out. And when it comes to schema, this schema function will only work with Postgres. This will not work with SQLite. Okay, keep this in mind. If I execute that, it will actually give me the entire schema that has been created in the Postgres database. So this is a lot of activity has been done around this, and that is how these functions have been created. You can actually take a look into this in Stack Overflow and various other locations. You'll find a lot of information how to work with this kind of functions. And yeah, that is about how to push the data, bulk data. Okay, you have learned a lot of things at this moment. So you have learned to actually work with the database, two databases, SQLite3 and Postgres, and you have understood how to push the data into the database, and then you understood how to query the database. Okay, and now assume that you want to change the query. Here you want to change the query. All you need to do is come to this function and change this query. Once you change this query, right, whichever SQL query you want to make, that will get output here. That will come out as a data frame. This is actually a data frame, Pandas data frame. So that will come out as a data frame here, and you can use it. So that is the way to work with bulk data. But when you are working with APIs, what will happen is you cannot actually use bulk data. And further to that, APIs are going to send the data to the internet, and it is going to be rendered in the browser, like that you are seeing here, right? It is going to be rendered here, and APIs, the browser only talks JSON. It doesn't talk Python. It doesn't talk data frame for that matter. So it talks only JSON. Now what happens is that Python ecosystem has created fast API for hosting and creating the API server. But after that, to move the data, from Python execution environment and convert it to JSON, it takes a lot of hoops and functions. A lot of activity has to go through, and that is what you see in this place. Okay, so this entire hoops that you are seeing, that we are jumping through, that is for taking the data. Okay, so here this particular area, what is happening is that we are making the things ready from our Python environment to be moved into the JSON environment or the JavaScript environment, or we should say internet, the whole internet. So the process is that we need to first of all create an engine. Okay, so creating engine, this particular activity is taken care by SQLAlchemy. So you don't need to worry about it, it will create it. For creating the engine, you need to give the connection string. So the connection string we already discussed. And once you create the engine, you need to create the session. And in parallel, you also need to create an object relation map. So I will show you what is ORM, how the object relation map looks. This ORM should be used to create the tables. So there is a command for this also. You need to create it. Once you create it, then you need to use the ORM inside Python environment and then query it. This is where the fun begins. Okay. So once you can query the database using the ORM, you can do both insert as well as you can get the data out of the database. But once you get the data out of the database, or when you are actually sending it in, you have to send it as SQLAlchemy objects only. You cannot send it as any other object, because the ORM is actually a SQLAlchemy object. And then once for converting it, you use SQLmodel or Pydantic library. After you convert it, then you can print it in Python, or you can use it anywhere. Either you can use it in JSON or you can use it in Python environment. But all this has to be done in order to get the data from the database or to the database. This is what we are going to see next. Okay. Let us go back to the notebook. So if you scroll down here, I am importing a lot of things here. So I am importing SQLAlchemy, create engine. I told about create engine, right? And I am importing select. This is the select that we use in all the databases. The same select you saw here. The select you saw here, where it is. This select command. This is the same select command that we are using in this location. This is the select command or function in SQLAlchemy, and this is inside SQLAlchemy. And next we are importing this declarative base. Then we are importing session. So this is ORM, object relation map, ORM, and we are importing session. And in SQLAlchemy, we have to create the ORM object relation map object, I told you, right? So for that, we need to import all these functions also. And then this is actually not required. Just keep it in your mind if you are going to use timestamp. I'm going to execute this. It got executed. And I'm going to first work with SQLite database only in this example. I'm not going to use Postgres. Okay. The reason is very simple. For you to practice or you to execute this entire code, SQLite will be much more possible for you. For you to go and get the Postgres database installed, get it configured, it might be difficult for you, and you might find it difficult to complete this particular video. So I am using SQLite only, and I'm going to use tutorial database, tutorial data, tutorial underscore data DB, and I'm going to connect to it. And inside the tutorial data DB, I'm going to create whatever database, whatever table is already there. The table name is hack underscore data. So let me go back and let me show you that. Okay, and how to show you that? Let me quit this and let me show you the table tutorial database tables. You see the table name, it is hack underscore data, and if you do select star from hack underscore data, you will see that the entire 40,000 rows is inside this table. Okay, but I don't want the entire 40,000 rows. I want only the first 10 rows or 15 rows or whatever it is, and I want that 10 or 15 rows inside the Python execution environment, not in the command prompt. Okay, and for that, this is the object relation map that I'm creating. The ORM object I told, this is the object that I'm creating. And why am I telling that this is an SQLAlchemy object? Because, okay, this is a SQLAlchemy object, because it is inheriting base. The base variable, you see, the base variable is actually a SQLAlchemy class. How did I know that? I have imported it here. So I have told SQLAlchemy.ext.declarative import declarative base. So, and this class is getting imported here. And that is why this ORM or this object, ORM object, is an SQLAlchemy object. Okay. Now let me execute this. So now I have already created the hacker ORM object. Next is to create the session. You will see that, okay, just a minute. I have to create the session. So this has to come later. So let me, there is a lot of discussion around the way to, convert from SQLAlchemy to Pydantic. So you can actually take a look at this two links if you have time. So I did some research here, and that is how I found the library that you are going to see next, the SQL2 Pydantic library. That is how I found it. And this particular code will actually create a variable called Pydantic hacker, which is actually going to convert my SQLAlchemy object to Pydantic object. You will see that the okay, let me first complete. Okay, so here I am actually creating the session. So I am creating the database session, and for this session I am giving db underscore connection. The db underscore connection is here, so I am using this connection. Okay, and I am going to execute this, and I have created the session using this. And all I need to do to query the database now is to use the ORM hacker, this ORM object, in this particular statement. So I'm using this session db underscore exec, using this query method, giving the table name, and I'm going to get the first row. Okay, let me execute this, and then I have got the row. Okay, how did I know I have got the row? Very simple. Just, and you see, when it prints, it is actually printing some gibberish. Okay, what is this? It is saying that this is actually hacker object, this object. Okay, and it is at this address. Okay, it is not giving me the data. And if you check the type, you will see that hacker data is, it's not even giving me the type. It is not even telling me it is SQL object or SQLAlchemy object. So it is just telling that it is hacker object. So it's no use for me. But how to convert this object into something that I can use? That is where I'm going to use Pydantic hacker object, Pydantic hacker variable. So I'm going to use that variable, and I'm going to use from ORM method, and then I'm going to convert it. So let me execute that. And now if I use pyd underscore hacker underscore data and do convert, okay, before I convert to dict, so let us actually print this. You see the data is out. So the index 0 7 underscore 9 underscore 13 6.08, host is Groucho hyphen SA. So let us check that. Let us go to the database and let us query the first just a minute. So you see the same data that we are seeing here, it is also there in the there here also. So both are same. Okay, so, but I don't want it in this fashion, but I want it in dictionary fashion, that is Python dictionary fashion. So let me say Python dictionary, and let me print that. So this has come out as Python dictionary. Okay, so let us go back to the PDF again. What you have done is, we established the engine. So we created the engine, we created a session, we created the ORM, we created the table. Hold on a minute, I did not create the table. The table was already there, right? Okay, what happens in case of ORM is that if the table is already there, it actually goes to the table. We have given the table name, the hack_data table name we gave in when we created the object relation map. It uses that. It doesn't complain. Okay, but if the table is itself not created, I will show you how to create it in next couple of minutes. But if it is not created, it will create it. I will show how that is done. And then we use that session to query the ORM. Then we received the data. We used the Pydantic library and then converted it to object. Simple, isn't it? In 15 minutes, you are master of getting the data into the database and then querying the data and putting it on the Python execution environment. So let us go back to the Internet Explorer again and let us do something more interesting. Now what I am going to do is, I am going to work on creating another table. Okay, so before that I have to go back to the terminal again. Sorry guys. So let me show the tables available here so that you, okay, so there is hack_data and there is new_table. Okay, I'm going to say drop table new_ because this is going to confuse. So I'm going to say drop it. Okay, and there is only hack_data. That is the main bulk data that we got. Let us go to the Jupyter notebook, and now I'm going to create a new ORM. New ORM for the table tutorial PYD. Okay, this is the name of the table. You see the table name here, I'm giving it, and this table will contain host, student, teacher, host, student, country, postal code, latitude and longitude. These are the variables it will contain. So it will contain integer, float, string, all the things, and the primary key is index. Okay, and I'm going to execute this. Now the ORM has been created. The ORM name is tutorial, and here is the place where I actually create everything. So basically, once I give create all and give the database connection, the database connection comes from where? Comes from here. So it is connecting to tutorial_data.db. Okay, and now if I execute this, I am executing that. It actually went through. Okay, there was no errors. Go to the terminal back. Okay, and now you see there is a new table, tutorial_pyd, and if you use schema, this is another command to get the schema from the SQLite database. You will see that it has created a table. I did not create the table here. The table was created by the ORM, and by SQLAlchemy by using the session that we created earlier. So by using the session that we created earlier. So this session. So we have used the ORM to create the table. Now the next what we need to do is we need to write the data into the table, and we want to write only one row of data. Okay, we are not going to write multiple rows, or we are not going to push entire CSV. We are just going to write single data, and the single data is created here. Okay, the host is Martian, student is Venusian, country is Tiberi, and latitude, longitude, postal code. So the variable is std1. The variable name is std1. I'm going to execute it, and you will be surprised. In order to push it into database, all we need to do is use the existing session db_exec and add it. So there is a method called add. I have to just add it. And now, okay, so let me go to the terminal again. I'm doing back and forth, okay? But when you are working, what you need to do is you should actually have both the internet, the browser and the terminal adjacent. Okay, let me show you how to do that. So first of all, let me actually, this is how it looks, and then I'm going to make the terminal also like this, and let me reduce the terminal size so that it can fit into the. What happens is, in case of like this, so you actually keep it like this. If you have window management or display window managers, it will be much easier. We can use a shortcut and you can get it. So I have this, so I have it in parallel here. You may not be able to see. Just a minute. Just give me a moment, and you will be able to see. Yeah, now you'll be able to see. Let me actually run the command select star from tutorial PYD, and you'll see that the data that is coming here is same as the data that we entered here. Okay, so let me first of all go back to the full screen. So you see the data here, and let me go back to the full screen there also. So the data is same. So when I am switching it back and forth because to show you the things in full screen. But in your case, when you are working, ensure that you are having it in adjacent way, the way I showed to you a couple of seconds back. Okay, now I have added it, I have committed it, and ensure you always commit, or else whatever data you are adding will not get added into the database. Now next is how to actually do the output. So we saw that by using the query. So we actually we went here, we queried it, we queried this data here. It is in command prompt, but we don't want that, right? We want the query to be done in the Python environment, Jupyter Notebook environment, and for that we are going to use again dbexec query tutorial, and I am going to say first. Okay, and then I am going to convert that data into SQL to Pydantic, and I am going to use this command, and then I am going to output, and you will see that I am getting the output again. So in this 4 lines, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this 5 cells, we actually created a new table. We were able to establish, we were able to create the table inside the database. We were able to load the data, one row of data into the database, and then we were able to take the data out again. And all we did it through Python. We did not use anything manually on the command prompt. Assume now you have a huge amount of data, or assume that the data is coming from the API or from the users. Now imagine how you can use this particular setup to work with the users, work with the API, work with real-time data. This is what we will be looking in the next video. So when I introduce Fast API, this is exactly what we will be doing. Here, this particular video is the base for the next video that is going to come on Fast API. So ensure that you are confident with this particular video. I would suggest that you even practice. If you are thinking about creating some projects like this for yourself, then it is better that you practice this particular notebook. Okay, so that is all, guys. We are done. So we have completed this entire things that I told you. So from the starting to beginning, yes, I did not cover this. Okay, but as of now, in this 1 hour, you have already completed it. So we have gone through all the process and we have completed it. And you can go to the next video without losing any of the continuity. But in next couple of minutes, one more important thing. So if you like this content and just leave a like. If you have any questions, do comment in the comment section. I will get back to you, and do share it with others who are looking for this kinds of data, this kinds of information. And subscribe to my channel so that you will get updates whenever I give post new videos. And if you have any suggestion for new videos also, do let me know. I will update as soon as possible. The most important point is that stay tuned for the next video. This video, creating fast API, I actually started liking fast API a lot, and you'll actually love it once you take a look at it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Jupyter Notebook. Okay, and I'm going to go to SQL model, Python_SQL model file, where I'll be exploring the same thing, but only difference in this model is everything is same. Okay, only difference in this model is that I'll be using a very different library. So I'll be using SQL model. So what SQL model does is it is a very interesting library. So you can actually read about it here. Okay, this library was written by T.N. Golo. T.N. Golo is the same guy who also wrote fast API. So this guy is phenomenal creator. I mean, he's really out of this world. So he plays Python like guitar. So he knows this inside out. So what happens in this case is we are not importing SQLAlchemy at all. Okay, there is this library called SQL model, which actually abstracts SQLAlchemy itself. Okay, it's like a advanced model. So we are going to work with SQL models field session, SQL model object, SQL model class, create engine, and select. Nowhere SQLAlchemy is coming. Okay, keep this in mind. And you can execute this notebook and see, and ensure that this trial_data.db is created in your environment. If you don't know how to create it, you can go back to, okay, let me actually refresh it. .exit. I think I remember I may not have actually told. So if you have to create the new database, you have to say SQLite3 and give the database name. So in case of here, I have to say trial_data.db. Once you do this, it will actually go enter into the database directly. Okay, so exit, and if you do an ls, you will see that 1 minute. So I'm back. So there was some challenge with my local environment, so it took some time to show this database. So once you create the database using this command, it will automatically create this file also. So that is how it works. So let me go back to the Internet Explorer, start Jupyter Notebooks, and here I am actually creating the engine, and this time I'm using this create engine method function. And here, if you see, this is actually the ORM, the object relation map. We are going to use SQL model class, that is SQL models SQL model class. This is how it is getting created, and the way the ORM gets created is totally different. You see, it is nowhere same as what we created here. This looks a lot more complicated, and this looks very simple. This looks as if I am going to work with integer and string that is a part of Python. So this model is really one of the best abstractions that I have come across. And once I create this, and then you create the session, and then you can actually connect with the table by using this select command, and then you can execute this. Let me actually execute and show. Okay, that will be much more easier. So let us execute this particular table. Okay, we are on time. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use trial_db because I have trial_data. I will create that, and I'm going to create the ORM. I have created it, and now I am going to, okay, first of all, I have not actually wait a minute. I have not loaded the data, right? Okay, I have not loaded the data. So let me load the data. So load data and SQLite3 connection connect. Wait a minute. Yeah, I don't need to give the here in this case the function is a little different. So in this notebook the function is different from this notebook. So here I have to just give the DB location. Okay, so I just give the DB location and I give the data location and I give the table name and I load the data. So this will actually load the data into trial_data.db. This is not tutorial_data, this is trial_data. Okay, and now I am going to query this data, this table, that is hack_data. Okay, and let us query it. I created the session and with that session object I'm querying it. Okay, so here is the session that I'm creating and I'm going to query it, and you will see that this is just a statement. Okay, the query is happening here. This session object is getting used here. Okay, the way Jupyter Notebook works and the way the script will work will be totally different. In script, I will have to create a tab here. I have to create a tab like this, and that is how this entire that is how the script will work, Python script will work. But in case of Jupyter Notebook, I can keep it like this. It will work without any issue. So I have already queried it, and now if you see, all I need to do is just execute this. You will see that I am getting the first row of the data. Okay, I did not do any of. Okay, let me show you something more interesting. Let us actually say hack 10 data. I think it will work. Hack 10 data, and I am going to say session.exec statement, and I'm going to say all. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for data in hack 10 data. Okay, let me also show you something. Let me check the length of the hack 10 data. Okay, you see the length is coming as hack 10. Okay, for hack 10 data, the length is coming as 10. Why is that? So let me first of all show you something. Let me actually print the data. So if you see the data is directly coming out. So if I just print it, the data is coming out. So that is how good the SQLmodel library is. So you might be wondering, okay, if I have actually stopped at 1 hour, I would have missed one of the best libraries. See, sometimes things do happen. And then if I have to make it into a dictionary, all I need to do is come here, made a mistake, paste and say dict, click, and now it has become the dictionary. So in no time, I actually push the data. I push the data, the sample. Okay, let me put that also here. Cat sample database head. Okay, wrong head. N wrong again. 5. So I push this data into the SQLite database trial_data. Then I created the ORM. I established the session here, and then I queried it using this command. And in no time, I started printing the data and I converted to dict. The entire process that I was telling about here is done in no time. And this entire, this process was, very much compressed. This process was very much compressed. So previously I had to do a lot of, understanding of this, but SQLmodel library made it very easy. Okay, and down the line I am also creating one more table here, same like how I created in the in this area where I created the table for students. I am creating the same thing. You can explore this. Okay, this will actually give the same data but at a very faster pace, and you can understand a lot easy this particular information. So that is all, guys, for this particular video, and I hope that the content was helpful. And do practice, because the way I have explained is it has come after a lot of practice, lot of falling down and getting up, lots of frustration. So it's not, it did not come in single try. So I had to do a lot of activity, lot of research. I didn't know that SQLmodel library was there till today morning. In fact, today morning when I was creating this video, I did not know that. So always keep searching for new libraries in the Python ecosystem. Read. Okay, the most important thing is, let us come back here. If you go to the link, I think this link, and also this link, where it is, this link. So if you go to these links, right, you will see that the developers are having a lot of discussion that how to bridge Pydantic models with SQLAlchemy. So this is one of the discussion that the developers are having, and I went through that. And after a lot of discussion, they were taking it back and forth, and suddenly there is a discussion that came about. Tiangolo comes into picture in 2019, and he talks about, okay, I've created something called as something to connect. And he shows that, okay, fast API can connect with SQL database. And after some time, after you have to, I was further researching, further going down, and suddenly I start seeing that, okay, there is a new model itself, library itself that is created for integrating SQLAlchemy and Pydantic. And as the discussion goes on, so this is how, so suddenly here you see someone says that, okay, take a look at this particular link, and if I follow that is how I found SQL model library. So, and once I followed that, and once I went to this particular website, I saw that this library is far more advanced than any other library that I found for interacting with both the database and Python. If not for this this particular discussion, where is that? So I was going through the discussion, and then only I found that. So like this, so there will be lots of discoveries that you come across, and then you share it with the world. So if you have any questions, if you need more suggestions, then do comment it out. I will try to update. I will look into that, and I will update as soon as possible. And that is all. Stay tuned for the Fast API video, and thanks guys, thanks for watching, and till the next video, see you. Have a great time.